Before we move on to some more of the practical applications here, I want to ask, are there any other stories of how your culture impact team there has impacted the community?
I have hundreds of stories, but I think one that really stands out is how we influence our school children in our area. We have this great program. It's called Release Time Education that any district anywhere in the country can implement, and you get buses and you take them to the school. You park it in front of the school, and you have a Bible teacher that comes out to teach the children Bible for, I think it's maybe an hour a week. And that's allowed by our U.S. Constitution. I think it's something that every school district should be implementing, every culture impact team, every church should get behind. So look into that.
And we actually have a resource for that, a pamphlet with information how you can start that. If it can happen in California, it can probably happen almost anywhere in the country, and it is based on a Supreme Court decision. So that's exciting. A lot of exciting stuff. I know a lot about what's happened in Chino Hills. But I want to move on now. I want to bring Hank Hankins on. Hank, come on in and join us. Hank is, actually, I know Hank quite well because he heads up the Culture Impact Team in my home church in Louisiana, but that's not all he does. He caught the vision and has the passion for Culture Impact Team, and he's helping develop some resources for Culture Impact Teams across the nation. Hank, welcome today.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you.
Oh. Thank you. Let's talk about where we go from here.
Okay.
You've got a year-long strategy that we embark upon when we leave this gathering today.
One of the challenges that I looked at on a new Culture Impact Team is what will they do when they take the manual, which is as large as it is, when they take this manual and they walk out, what do? We've developed a 12-month strategy that will basically break down what can take place over those 12 months to effectively turn the country and culture back to God, how the church can engage. It's going to involve things from voter registration drive. It's going to involve things from getting out the vote. It's going to involve things from educating our church body. But it's a step-by-step guide, month-by-month guide. What are you going to do 4 months from now? What are you going to do 7 months from now? This guy will actually give you a direction, a foothold in being a productive Culture Impact Team.
So this kind of goes back to the old adage that how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
That's right, amen.
So what we're doing here is we're breaking this down one bite at a time, 1 month at a time, and if you look, it could be overwhelming. And oftentimes, quite frankly, churches don't think about launching one of these until there's trouble.
Right.
And then you're launched into crisis. Don't wait. Don't wait until you have a crisis. Begin to plan now, and guess what? You actually might avert a crisis simply by your presence. So that's exciting, Hank. I appreciate the work that you're doing there in breaking this down so folks can use this one step at a time. Let's talk a little bit about voter registration as a part of the component of this plan. How you're proposing it, and how, Gina, your experience in that as well.
I think voter registration is one of the first steps that we can take as a church body to change the culture within inside the church. You see, we not only have to change the culture outside the church, we must change the culture on the inside of the church. And in this, we've put down as far as resources that you would want to utilize, and obviously the first one's going to be your Secretary of State if you've never done this before. But our guide will show you step by step on what to do. We've also laid out an Ignite campaign. Ignite campaign is where we mobilize the church body to not only register to vote, but we also mobilize hopefully 100% of the church body to actually vote.
It's key. I mean, we've actually made progress in the last decade of getting evangelical social conservatives registered, but we still have a ways to go to actually get them to get up and go vote. And that's, if you're registered and you're not voting, it doesn't make any difference, it's not having any impact. What's been your experience, Gina?
Well, we've registered thousands and thousands of people at my church, but every church is going to handle an election year in a different way. So I think the minimum that a church should be doing is registering people to vote. Absolute minimum. But at our own church, not only do we do these voter registration drives, but we hand out voter guides, which is allowed.
Right.
We also produce voter guides for local, school board, and city council races. And we've been doing that for maybe the last 7 elections or so. We send a questionnaire to the candidates and find out where they stand on some of these really important issues. We put them in a document and hand them out to our congregation, so that way
Right.
they know
Informed.
exactly who they're voting for. And for the person that does not answer our questionnaire, kind of wonder why, right? And so we have educated voters going to the polls. And so there's a lot of other things that you can do. It just depends on how involved you want to be, but that's really impactful.
Now, Hank, you've done the voter guides as
Yes.
well
Yes.
as candidate forums. You've
Correct.
hosted forums in your church, which is completely legal. To have, the church actually used to be the meeting place in most communities where people would come together. Why not make it that way again?
Again, it's a mindset that we have to change. We've got to change the culture, and so that the churches can understand, yes, we can engage and we should engage, and that's one of the critical steps that we're going to take. And it's not going to be a sprint race. It's going to be a marathon.
Right.
It's going to take baby steps, because the moral of our compass of our country is 180 degrees wrong, and it's going to take 1 degree at a time to turn it back toward God.
That's why it's great, this 12-step process. It's a recovery process, really, recovering our country. Break it down 1 month at a time. You can find out more about this. Go to cultureimpact.org.